want to ask you something, and I want you to be very honest with yourself. How many content tools do you currently have open? How many half finished ideas in terms of content do you currently have in your notes app? How many scheduling systems, content calendars, or repurposing systems do you currently have set up and yet you've quietly abandoned? If the answer is more than you want to admit, then this video is for you. Here is what I've learned working for years with creators, coaches, and consultants who are smart, driven, and genuinely good at what they do. The problem almost never is effort. It's almost always a system or a lack of it. And right here, I want to be very honest with you about something that I don't generally talk about a lot. My brain is always busy. It never stops. There are always multiple angles, multiple connections. And if you looked at it from above, it would look like a very, very busy interjunction of multiple roads. Thoughts go quickly, ideas stack on top of each other or connect with multiple puzzle pieces. And it takes a real effort to quiet that mind down. And for a really long time, my content reflected that. Content was full of ideas going into multiple directions. And I thought I needed to use a new strategy every single week because I thought what I'm posting isn't working. What was result out of all of this was that I had some sort of progress, but never enough traction to attract those exact clients that I wanted to work with. And it was utterly overwhelming and exhausting. And what I realized with time was that I wasn't lacking creativity. I wasn't lacking discipline. Far from it. Most people who I knew me as the most disciplined person. What I was lacking was a system and a foundation that I could build on. And that's when I started building what I now call a structured minimalism. At first, it was just a way to live a more productive, more organized life and work with my brain rather than against it. And even though at first it was just a life system, I then translated it into a business. And something interesting happened because the people that I worked with started asking about it and started asking how I structure my work and my days. And they wanted a system because for anyone whose brain creates complexity, managing that complexity is actually a real effort and it can be truly, truly tiring. Now, most people, when they think the word structure, get an allergic reaction, and I can completely understand that. Most people think having a structure is limiting. They think it's putting yourself in a box and killing any creativity in your content. The truth is quite the opposite. Structure doesn't limit creativity. In fact, it creates enough space for creativity to flourish. Think about it this way. You just bought a plot of land. Right now, it's big, wide, and open, and you love it. The location is great. But there's one problem. It is muddy, and it's moving. Now, you could either start working on your house right now, start laying bricks, creating the structure itself. But what would happen with time is if you didn't put the cement strong foundation first, is the house would start sinking. Because without a strong foundation, everything starts shifting and moving. And ultimately what happens is you end up exerting a lot of energy to just keep it where it was rather than take care of other things, more complex things like interior design or getting parties and hosting your friends. So you end up managing something that was never stable to begin with. Now imagine a different scenario. You first clear the land, you lay the foundation, you set it up properly, and then you let it sit. At first, it may sound like it's a very, very slow process, but what happens after is everything you build on top holds. So you can go higher, you can build bigger, because you're not constantly firefighting what didn't hold in the first place. And that's what a solid content system does to your brain. It simply creates a strong, solid foundation for you to then be able to expand your creativity. When your brain is swimming in clutter and messiness, it's spending all the energy trying to manage the mess, and there is nothing really left to create. So, what does clutter in content look like in practice? It looks like having a Notion dashboard that you spend a couple of days creating and never really touching it again. It looks like spending Sunday afternoon or evening planning a week of content, and then on Tuesday, something happens and everything just falls flat. It looks like starting over every few weeks with a new strategy because the last one felt unsustainable. The most sneaky thing about it all is that it actually feels like productivity. Planning, setting up systems, it feels great because it gives you that very instant gratification. It all feels like progress. But if the system has too many moving pieces, it's creating drag rather than momentum. So most creators don't really have a laziness problem. They have a problem with overcomplication in terms of systems. And something that some people are really truly afraid to talk about is that their nervous system feels it. That low level stress you feel when you've been working on something a whole day and yet you feel like it's too heavy to carry is the exact problem you have. So here is what structured minimalism looks like in practice. There are just three things. That's it. Nothing more. Number one, you've got one content day. So pick just one day a week that you'll dedicate to creating your content. Pick one day, not a day where you squeeze content between emails, admin, creation of materials for your course, or anything else. One day that's specifically dedicated for creating content. It does something really important. It creates a container. So rather than letting the content creation bleed in between other tasks and thus make your brain switch between different tasks and waste energy, you're creating a specific space that you fill in with one type of activity, saving yourself mental bandwidth. Having that container does one important type of job. It allows your brain to relax instead of having it constantly think about content on those other days between other things, especially when something unexpected happens. Number two, have one repurposing rule. Every piece of content gets one repurpose, not five, not 8 different platforms, just one repurpose. At this stage, we're not thinking about full distribution strategy. We're thinking about creating a system as a good foundation for whatever comes next. It could be that one of your YouTube videos then becomes one carousel. It could be that a podcast episode then becomes 3 shorts or clips. You decide the rule, you're in charge and in control, and then just run it. No thinking, should I post this on LinkedIn as well? Should I add this to TikTok as well? Just one rule for now. And number 3, choose one core message for a week. This one is the most understated and the most underused. Instead of trying 10 different concepts across 10 different content pieces, you pick just one idea and then talk about it multiple ways. It will also help you with something very different, and it is with the fact that human brain needs to hear a specific message multiple times for it to land. So most people think that talking about one thing over and over is boring or that it will create people's disinterest. The truth is quite the opposite, where hearing one concept from various angles helps to learn faster and solidify that concept in your brain. And that helps you also to spend less energy to try to reinvent yourself every single day. So to summarize it, you've got one content day, one repurpose rule, and just one core message per week. That's it. Everything else gets built on top of that. Not now, when you are ready, when your system is stable, and when it actually makes sense to add more. So, in other words, you create safety first and then expand. I talk about the intersection of psychology, simplicity, and building a business that supports the way your brain is wired. And now I'm genuinely curious, what is that one piece of content creation that feels cluttered at the moment for you? Drop a comment below. I reply to every single one.